It seems like it's been quite a while since we heard about the Space Launch System and the first launch a part of Artemis 1. The rocket has been busy in the last few months between multiple rollouts, repairs, launch attempts, and more. Thankfully, after the most recent rollback to the VAB, it looks like NASA has set specific dates for the next launch attempt. Just 2 days ago, NASA announced that the agency is targeting November 14th for the next Artemis 1 launch attempt. This includes a few backups on some of the days soon after to try and give proper room for error. In addition, since being rolled into the VAB on September 28th, NASA has been working to both repair and service general equipment, systems, and the rocket itself. All of which moving toward the goal of finally launching this rocket to mark the first step in returning humans to the moon. While there have been a lot of delays in the last few months alone, NASA wants to ensure this launch goes perfectly. Here I will go more in depth into the upcoming launch dates, what the rocket has been up to, possible future delays, and more. On October 12th, NASA tweeted saying, NASA is targeting the next launch attempt of Artemis 1 for Monday, November 14th, with liftoff of the Space Launch System rocket carrying the NASA Orion spacecraft, planned during a 69-minute launch window that opens at 12:07 a.m. EST. Artemis 1 is an uncrewed flight test to launch SLS and send Orion around the moon and back to Earth to thoroughly test its system before flights with astronauts. The agency highlighted that inspections and analysis over the previous week have confirmed minimal work is required to prepare the rocket and spacecraft to roll out to Launch Pad 39B at Kennedy Space Center in Florida following the rollback due to Hurricane Ian. Teams will perform standard maintenance to repair minor damage to the foam and cork on the thermal protection system and recharge or replace batteries on the rocket, several secondary payloads, and the flight termination system. In this case, to meet the requirement by the Eastern Range for the certification of the flight termination system, currently set at 25 days, NASA needed to roll the rocket and spacecraft back to the VAB before the next launch attempt to reset the system's batteries. The flight termination system is required on all rockets to protect public safety. In terms of the upcoming launch attempt, the agency plans to roll the rocket back to the launch pad as early as Friday, November 4th. In addition, NASA has requested backup launch opportunities for Wednesday, November 16th at 1:04 a.m. and Saturday, November 19th at 1:45 a.m., which are both 2-hour launch windows. A launch on November 14th would result in a mission duration of about 25.5 days with a splashdown in the Pacific Ocean Friday, December 9th. Based on factors including the moon's position, time of day when splashdown occurs, Orion's solar panels, and more, NASA has set time periods when SLS can launch for Artemis 1. This means NASA and the Space Launch System will have quite a few opportunities in November to try and launch for the first time. However, if problems arise and the agency is not able to launch prior to November 27th, the next opportunity opens up in December. Specifically, the earliest they could launch at that point would be December 9th, which stretches to December 23rd. This being said, it's possible that next month NASA is finally ready for the first launch. As we know, there have been quite a few things come up in the past few months that have stopped the rocket from launching. This has included weather, hydrogen leaks, time constraints, flight termination system batteries, and more. Almost all of which NASA has been working on inside the vehicle assembly building to try and get this rocket off the ground and on a trajectory to the moon. It's important to point out that this first mission will have a significant impact on the future of Artemis missions and the overall goal of returning humans to the moon. Now that we know more about the upcoming launch date and the future mission availability of SLS, we can take a closer look at what work has been completed in the last few weeks while in the VAB. As of right now, engineers at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida are in the process of preparing the Space Launch System rocket and Orion spacecraft for the next launch attempt in November. Checkouts conducted this week will allow NASA to finalize the work schedule before rolling SLS and Orion back to Launch Pad 39B. Specifically, since resuming work after Hurricane Ian, teams have extended work platforms around SLS and Orion to access the exterior and access internal components. Exterior inspections pointed out some foam or cork from the thermal protection system on the rocket and spacecraft that needed to be repaired. NASA pointed out that this damage was minor and for the most part a simple fix. In addition, teams will replace the flight batteries for the interim cryogenic propulsion stage and the boosters, as well as the batteries for the flight termination system in the boosters and core stage. Work will also include charging the CubeSats that are equipped to be recharged and have elected to do so. Inside Orion, work will include replenishing the specimens and batteries for the biology investigations riding within the capsule, as well as recharging the batteries associated with the crew seat accelerometers and space radiation experiments. Looking at the liquid hydrogen leak that caused some consistent problems over the last few months, it looks like NASA is confident the error has been resolved. In late September, the launch director confirmed all objectives had been met for the cryogenic demonstration test. After encountering a hydrogen leak early in the loading process, engineers were able to troubleshoot the issue and proceed with the planned activities. The hydrogen leak continued to occur in the quick disconnect, an interface between the liquid hydrogen fuel feed line and the Space Launch System rocket. This being said, the four main objectives for the demonstration including assessing the repair to address the hydrogen leak identified on the previous launch attempt, loading propellants into the rocket's tanks using new procedures, conducting the kickstart bleed, and performing a pre-pressurization test. The new cryogenic loading procedures and ground automation were designed to transition temperature and pressure slowly during tanking to reduce the likelihood of leaks that could be caused by rapid changes in temperature or pressure. After encountering the leak early in the operation, teams further reduced loading pressures to troubleshoot the issue and proceed with the demonstration test. The pre-pressurization test enabled engineers to calibrate the settings used for conditioning the engines during the terminal count, and validate timelines before launch day to reduce schedule risks during the countdown on launch day. Using this information and test results, the agency will likely use these procedures during the next launch attempt if the problem continues to arise. If everything goes according to plan, SLS will finally lift off 1 month from now. The first in a series of increasingly complex missions, Artemis 1 will be an uncrewed flight test that will provide a foundation for human deep space exploration and demonstrate NASA's commitment and capability to extend human existence to the moon and beyond. During this flight, the spacecraft will launch on one of the most powerful rockets in the world and fly farther than any spacecraft built for humans has ever flown. It will travel 280,000 miles from Earth, thousands of miles beyond the moon over the course of about a 4 to 6 week mission. Orion will stay in space longer than any ship for astronauts has done without docking to a space station, and return home faster and hotter than ever before. After about 4 to 6 weeks and a total distance traveled exceeding 1.3 million miles, the mission will end with a test of Orion's capability to return safely to the Earth as the spacecraft makes a precision landing within eyesight of the recovery ship off the coast of Baja, California. Following splashdown, Orion will remain powered for a period of time as divers from the US Navy and operations teams from NASA's Exploration Ground Systems approach in small boats from the waiting recovery ship. The divers will briefly inspect the spacecraft for hazards and hook up tending and tow lines, and then engineers will tow the capsule into the well deck of the recovery ship to bring the spacecraft home. NASA has been trying to launch the Space Launch System and Orion spacecraft for a few months now. Unfortunately, a few things have come in the way, including weather, a persistent liquid hydrogen leak, launch opportunities, and more. Thankfully, after returning to the VAB, repairs are being made and a new launch date has been set for November 14th. We will have to wait and see how it progresses and the impact it has on the space industry. Thank you very much for watching.